We begin this project the way you begin most projects, with a blank canvas. It is 2,000 by 2,000 blocks, with a ground height of -55, and then a water level of -20. So this gives us a lot of space. It gives us about 300 blocks of space to build our Skyland, and yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. So we're going to be using a new tool that has recently been added to Worldpainter, as of the making of this video anyway. Something I'm very excited about. It allows us to add floating layers, and in particular, I'm going to be using this to make floating islands, something I've wanted to do for a long time, but have struggled to be able to implement in this program. This tool is still in a limited preview. You can see it says there on the screen. So parts of the functionality are not yet implemented, and things are a little bit rough around the edges. In terms of how I'm setting up this floating island, you can see we've got a little bit of a preview, sort of a silhouette on the right hand side, and to be honest, because this is a new tool and I've never used it before, I'm really just messing around with the numbers, guessing and checking. I have a vague idea that I want the top level of my island to be at about Y level 100, but beyond that, I'm not really sure what the underside's going to look like. So we're going to add some numbers and tweak it until we have a shape that kind of looks like what we want. Okay, this looks pretty good. I think I'm happy with this. At the very least, it'll give us a jumping off point. Okay, so this is a layer, so we're going to have to paint it on with the paintbrush tool. I'm just going to freehand it with the paintbrush. We also want to make sure that we go around the edges of this shape and kind of get rid of any hard straight lines, any sharp points, and fill in any missing pixels. Remember that because this is a painted layer, any missing pixels are going to result in holes in our island, which we don't want. I think that the next time that I make an island like this, I'm going to make the edges, the coastline of the island, a little bit more rough. I thought that these smooth edges would look nice, but they ended up being maybe a little bit too smooth. But hey, we make mistakes and we learn from them here. That's all part of the learning process. So the first thing I want to do is smooth out this terrain. By default, it's noisy with these little hills, but to have more control over the final product, we want to make sure that we start with a flat canvas. So what I'm going to be doing is lowering all of this terrain back down to its base default level of about 100. So what we're doing now is we're going to kind of contour the edges. If I leave the edges untouched as straight lines, we're going to end up with sharp vertical walls around the edges of the island that don't look so good. To counteract this, I'm going to use a soft brush around the edges of the map to give it a more of a sloped edge. Ultimately, even with all of this prep, I still end up with a little bit of a vertical edge, but I think with some practice and experimentation, I can fix this in future projects. You'll also notice that the terrain turns blue whenever I lower it. That's because Worldpainter is adding a water layer below the ground level of this island, so we'll clean that up with the sponge tool after we're done. You guys don't want to watch me do this for like 5 minutes, so we'll speed up and fast forward ahead to the more interesting part. And there we go. We've got our very basic island shape. Very nice. Alright, in this next segment, we really just want to contour the terrain to identify which areas are the highest elevation. We really just want to provide a base layer, and we'll be putting our terrain on top of this. I really like the flatten tool for this. A few clicks here and there will give us nice slopes and interesting shapes. Height variation is the name of the game here. At this stage, you're really looking to play with the interaction of steep slopes and gradual hills. This will naturally form little valleys and rocky outcrops that add a lot of character to the mountain. Next, we're going to use a smoothing tool, and we just want to blend the contours and get rid of hard lines and sharp points. This will make the mountains that we add in the next segment stand out better against the smoother base terrain. I wasn't really happy with the height of the terrain, so I'm adding a little bit more in the same vein as we did before. By building our terrain in layers like this, we give ourselves a lot of control over the final shape. And then finally, we're going to go around the edges and just make sure that we smooth those out. Again, I'm trying to keep the height away from the edges, just so that we end up with a smooth edge that doesn't look kind of weird like it's been cut out with a cookie cutter. This is going to happen a lot throughout this video, so get used to it. This section uses a lot of custom brushes that I've accumulated over the years. For information about how to find and install custom brushes, I would recommend checking out the Worldpainter website. I'll leave a link in the description. We're going to remove our height mask because we don't want flat top mountains, but we want to keep an eye on the terrain height in the bottom left corner of our screen to make sure that our mountains are not getting to be too tall. We want to vary the brushes in size and rotation, particularly if you have very few brushes to work with, so it's hard to tell that we're using the same ones over and over again. The number and variety of brushes you use is really up to you. I'm using a lot in this video just for fun, but really you could make do with as little as maybe 3 to 5. For this next section, I'm going to load in some block palettes that I've been using on my main project. They're pretty simple to create. It's just a collection of different blocks. And for this terrain, I think I ended up using 7 different palettes, but you could really get away with as few as 3 or 4 and end up with really great results. This first terrain palette is what I call mossy grass. It is quite literally a mixture of moss and grass. For the mountains, I have 4 distinct palettes that I use. Ranging from a dark stone up to a light stone. That kind of gradient gives us nice colors on the mountain. I thought about using dirt as kind of a base layer for the island, but it looks a little bit too dead and brown. So instead I'm going to add it with an angle mask of below 5 degrees to only have dirt in the flattest areas to add a little bit of texture. Next I'm going to use the spray can tool, and we'll go around and feather the edge of the dirt and grass to make sure the transition is less of a hard line. And then the very last thing I'm going to do is add this cute little dirt path that winds its way up the mountain. I think that if I built on this in game, I think I'd add a little dock at the base, maybe like a sky dock, and then a lighthouse at the top of the mountain. I think that would be really cute. These layers are also imported from my main project. They contain a variety of schematics of trees, rocks, stumps, and other bits and bobs that help bring things to life. Once again, for your own projects, I would suggest checking out the Worldpainter website for more information about where to find the tree schematics that you can use in your own world. I'll provide a link down in the description. I'm also using some plant layers. These are customizable in-game, just like the terrain palettes. The main one I'm using is a mixture of grasses and flowers to cover the green parts of our map. Next, we're going to add a layer I call forest debris. This contains fallen logs, boulders, and other small schematics. We will add a bit of oak forest with some custom oak trees. A few poplar stands to add a little bit of texture. And finally, I decided to add just a little bit of birch just for that extra little zing. And I'm really glad I did because it ended up looking really great. Alright, I think we'll set the biome to forest and export this map, and let's take a look at it in game. Okay, here we are. We are loading up the world for the very first time. Minecraft is figuring out where everything goes. And we're in. Oh, looks like we're starting out underwater. Alright. Let's fly up and take a look at this. Oh, this looks nice. I really like the the rock and the grass. Angles are good. I can see the edges of the island are a little bit smooth, and that's something that I think I would change if I did this again. But overall, this is looking fantastic. What a fun place. I really like the birch trees I added too. There's a few that have kind of a yellow variant, and I think that yellow adds a lot of really nice color to an area that's mostly kind of brown, gray, and green. That little pop of color really brings things together. This all looks very good. I honestly expected to have to come back and tweak things a lot, but I think that I'm satisfied with the way this looks as it is. So let's go ahead and render out the full map. I'll do a little, pretty ray traced video, and yeah. In total, this map took me less than an hour to put together. The final time was about 51 minutes, so this is easily achievable in less than an hour. Of course, if you take more time, you're going to end up with better results. I also had the advantage of having custom layers and custom terrains already put together, so that's something that will consume time as well. But overall, I'm really happy with how this project came out. Shameless plug incoming, but if you'd like to download this map and explore it for yourself, I'm going to have it set up as a reward on my Patreon, a link in the description. You can check it out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.